Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we are discussing a commemorative 1997 model year limited edition of 750 pieces to mark 500 years since Vasco da Gama's landmark voyage around the Horn of Africa to India. This watch, designed by J. Borges Freitas, is a special tribute to the seafaring exploration of the Portuguese nation, and it is a gorgeous reminder of what Zenith was back in the mid to late 1990s. Taking a quick look at the case, you can see rose gold, 38 millimeters in diameter by 12.4 millimeters thick, 45.5 millimeters. From lug tip to lug tip with a 19 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Throw it on my wrist, 16 centimeters, and you can see that it wears well. Easy to wear under a cuff because it's very flat. It's also short across the wrist, so though my wrist is 16 centimeters, I believe this watch, nicknamed São Gabriel, could be worn on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference, so this circa 1997 men's watch is very much a unisex option today. The watch, of course, nicknamed São Gabriel after Vasco da Gama's flagship on his expedition to India. That is a bit of a nickname, although it was a little bit more substantiated on early versions of the watch. More on that in a moment. The strap features medium rectangular scale alligator leather with a light brown coloration, a contrasting stitch, a little bit of bolstering or stuffing to give it some volume, and a sheer cut edge. It is a Zenith factory strap, brand new, calfskin on the bottom. And then we have an element that's a little bit unconventional because you don't see this much on modern watches, but this is a plated buckle with a period-correct Zenith logo on it, and you can see that same Zenith logo on the crown. Now, the first 50 of these are rumored to have been made with solid casebacks depicting the vessel São Gabriel. Now, you can see this one is individually numbered as part of the 750, but it was later in the series, so you get the display caseback that was present on the majority of those in the 750-piece production run. It's a graceful watch, vintage-inspired, lozenge-shaped chronograph pushers. We have that vintage Zenith logo on the crown that matches that on the buckle. Again, it is a plated buckle, something you don't see much on modern watches anymore. A polished case flank that's nice and narrow, a bit of a dished case back that makes the watch sit lower than it really is on the wrist. We've got a bevel on the lug flank with satination on the lug hood, and then 1, 2, 3 steps to this shallow conical bezel. A dial of white lacquer with two different scales. One is a telemeter, one is a tachymeter. Outboard, we have the telemeter with the chronograph complication that is used to gauge distance. The tachymeter is used to gauge speed. And as you can see, it is also a chronometer. This is part of the Chronomaster line, and the Chronomasters in the 90s were COSC certified chronometer watches. Now, the watch does include its original factory tritium dial, and you can see that well. The hands are likely subsequent Luminova replacement units, and I'll demonstrate the disparity in luminescence between them. There is no doubt that the dial itself is tritium, and you can see just how quickly the dial fades. The rapidly diminishing hands lead me to suspect that they may also be tritium, although perhaps of a slightly newer vintage than the dial itself. They're of a different color, but they also fade, so this dial is all Zenith tritium. The hands are matte black on a white gloss lacquer base, so the contrast is high, and the watch has lovely Arabic numerals that are vertically arrayed in a handsome font. The timepiece does feature a date down at 4:30, which is a traditional spot for El Primero dates, and because it is an El Primero, crown out at the outermost position is how you activate the quick set. As with just about all traditional El Primeros, there is no hacking seconds function, but the watch has the quick set system and a wonderfully crisp column wheel mechanism. Not every automatic chronograph is good looking. A lot of them hide most of the interesting parts of the chronograph underneath some sort of a winding bridge. And with a vertical clutch, it's almost unheard of to see the mechanism itself. The El Primero, launched as the first integrated automatic high-beat chronograph caliber in 1969, has always had a beautifully visible lateral clutch and a column wheel to match. So the lateral clutch is beautiful, the column wheel is crisp, both the sound and the feel, and you can see that this is a much older generation of El Primero. In 1998, caliber 400Z debuted, debuted with a different number of teeth on the escape wheel. That was the primary change. So you could see, even if you knew nothing else about this watch, because it has the late 1995 forward hallmarks on the movement and the pre-1998 movement, you know it would have been made between late 1995 and 1998. So the fact that this is a 1997 model makes perfect sense based on the hallmarks on the case and the model number of the movement. You can also see that vintage Zenith logo on the rotor itself, as well as different finishing than you'll find on modern El Primeros, as there is a satination across the bridges rather than the later engine turning. And if you look at the steel components of the chronograph, you could see that they were either blasted or tumble polished. Today, they feature satination across their tops. We still have a combination of polished and blued screws, though they serve different purposes in the movement. The use of blue and polished screws on Zenith movements has always served to signify to the watchmaker the differing functions of those screws, fixing parts versus adjusting the mechanism. And it has a high beat, 36,000 vibrations per hour, and that's 10 beats per second. That is 5 hertz, and that's why the chronograph seconds hand of an El Primero seems a little bit smoother in its sweep than you'll find on a standard 28/8 chronograph. 50-hour power reserve, bidirectional automatic winding, and it is a good-looking movement. You can even see a feature no longer included on modern El Primero movements. There is a hooking guard for the hairspring. It runs adjacent to the hairspring across bridges, and the idea is to prevent the hairspring under conditions of extreme shock from getting hung up on the regulator assembly. So that is something you will not find on newer El Primero watches. This watch has a lot of history. Vasco da Gama, Zenith, Portugal, all rolled into a wonderful piece of 90s haute horlogerie. This is a collectible for the ages. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com, and please note, though, this is a nautically themed watch, 30 meters water resistant, so don't take it swimming.